The call from the past. It was a damp, gloomy evening in late October when the phone in the Mitchells' quiet suburban home rang. Sarah Mitchell, now graying and far older than her years should allow, nearly dropped her tea as the shrill tone cut through the silence. Her husband, Thomas, stiffened in his chair, his newspaper falling to the floor. The clock on the mantel ticked audibly, marking the seconds it took for Sarah to muster the courage to pick up the receiver. "Hello." Sarah's voice wavered as she spoke into the phone. A chilling pause followed before a voice she never thought she'd hear again replied. "Mom. It's me, Lily." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Her breath hitched. Thomas rose from his chair, his face a mask of shock and fear. Lily. The daughter they had buried. The daughter they had killed on that dreadful night 15 years ago. The memories came flooding back. Lily, at 15, was a rebellious girl, sharp-tongued and full of fire. She'd fought with them constantly, about school, about boys, about everything. That night, during one of their worst arguments, things spiraled out of control. Sarah had struck Lily, and she'd fallen, her head hitting the edge of the coffee table. Blood pooled quickly on the floor. Thomas, panicked and desperate, declared she was dead. In the dead of night, they'd taken her body to the dense woods miles away and buried her beneath a cluster of pine trees. They never spoke of it again, not to each other and certainly not to anyone else. To the world, Lily had simply vanished. And yet, here she was, calling them. Lily. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. How is this possible? You didn't kill me, Lily said, her voice icy and calm. You thought you did, but you were wrong. And I've waited a long time for this moment. Thomas grabbed the phone from Sarah, his voice trembling with anger and fear. Who is this? Is this some kind of sick joke? The line crackled, and then came a chilling laugh. I remember everything, Lily said. The look on your faces, the panic. You didn't even check if I was breathing. You just buried me like trash. But I'm not calling to explain. I'm calling to say that it's time for you to pay. The line went dead. For days, the Mitchells lived in terror. Every sound in the house made them jump. Every shadow seemed to carry Lily's ghost. And then, one night, there was a knock at the door. Two men in dark suits stood on the porch. They introduced themselves as federal investigators, but there was something about them that felt off. We need to talk about Lily Mitchell, one of them said, his voice grave. Sarah's knees buckled, and Thomas had to catch her before she collapsed. They were ushered into the living room, where the men began asking questions. At first, the Mitchells tried to feign ignorance, but the men were relentless. They knew too much, details no one else could possibly know. The coffee table, the woods, the exact location of the grave. Sarah broke down first, confessing through sobs. Thomas, defeated, followed suit. You won't get away with this, one of the men said coldly. Justice always catches up. The Mitchells were arrested that night. As they were led out of their home in handcuffs, Sarah caught a glimpse of someone standing beneath the streetlight at the end of the driveway. It was a girl, pale, with long dark hair and hollow eyes. She smiled faintly before vanishing into the shadows. In prison, the Mitchells were haunted by Lily in every way imaginable. At night, they heard her laughter echoing in their cells. They felt her presence, cold and unyielding. Other inmates claimed to see her, too. One swore he'd woken up to find a pale girl staring at him through the bars. One by one, the Mitchells' health deteriorated. Sarah succumbed to a mysterious illness within a year, and Thomas followed soon after, found dead in his cell with an expression of sheer terror etched onto his face. Their deaths were ruled natural, but the guards whispered of shadows that moved on their own and of a chilling laughter that lingered long after the Mitchells were gone. But Lily's vengeance didn't end there. The two men who had arrested the Mitchells, Carter and Blake, found their lives unraveling in grotesque ways. Carter, a seasoned investigator, began having recurring nightmares of a girl standing at the foot of his bed. One night, while driving home, his car was struck by a taxi. The driver, a wiry man with a nervous twitch, claimed a shadow darted across the road, causing him to swerve. Carter's car flipped into a ditch, leaving him with injuries that would never fully heal. Blake, meanwhile, met his end in a far stranger fashion. On his way to work, a trolleybus barreled through an intersection, its brakes mysteriously failing. Witnesses reported seeing a pale girl standing in the driver's blind spot moments before the crash. Blake didn't survive. In the shadows of the small town, rumors of Lily's haunting spread like wildfire, entangling new victims in her web. Among them was Robert, the taxi driver who had unwittingly caused Carter's crash. Racked with guilt, he began seeing a pale girl in his rearview mirror, her hollow eyes watching him. One fateful night, as he drove along an empty road, the girl appeared in his passenger seat. Startled, he swerved off the road into a ravine. The car burst into flames, and Robert's screams were drowned by the crackling fire. The trolleybus driver, a man named Victor, fared no better. Plagued by visions of Lily, he turned to drinking to numb his fear. On a foggy evening, he walked home from the bar, only to be attacked by a stray dog. The bite became infected, and as Victor's health declined, he swore he saw Lily's face every time he closed his eyes. He was found dead in his apartment, his body surrounded by scratch marks that didn't match the size of the dog. Meanwhile, the hunters who had killed the crocodile and uncovered the married couple's remains found themselves cursed by their discovery. One of them, a man named Daryl, was dragged into the swamp by an unseen force. His companions searched desperately, but all they found was his flashlight, flickering on the murky water's surface. Another hunter, Joel, returned home only to find his dog growling at the corner of an empty room. That night, Joel was bitten by the very animal he had trusted, and his body was discovered days later, mauled beyond recognition. As for the small town, paranoia turned into chaos. A husband and wife, Stephen and Clarissa, known for their infidelity in public fights, became the talk of the town after their disappearance. Witnesses claimed to see them arguing near the swamp late at night. The next day, their remains were found inside a crocodile's stomach, a chilling reminder of the couple's last moments. Yet, some whispered that the crocodile had been guided by something unnatural, something vengeful. The paranoia reached its peak when the swamp became the site of mass disappearances. Townsfolk who ventured too close claimed to hear Lily's voice whispering from the shadows. And then came the crocodile. Enormous, with pale, glowing eyes that seemed to pierce the soul, the beast terrorized the area. No one was safe. One night, a group of townsfolk, armed and determined to rid themselves of the creature, ventured into the swamp. Among them were Robert's brother, Victor's widow, and several others desperate for closure. They never returned. Days later, pieces of their belongings washed up on the riverbanks, along with chilling bite marks that could only belong to the monstrous crocodile. The final straw came when the creature attacked during a town festival, emerging from the nearby lake. Panic ensued as the beast rampaged through the crowd, its jaws snapping at anything that moved. The townspeople fled in all directions, but few escaped unscathed. Some claimed to see Lily's face reflected in the crocodile's glowing eyes, her spectral laughter echoing above the screams. By the time authorities arrived, the town was abandoned. The once thriving community was now a desolate ruin, overtaken by the swamp. The few survivors whispered of a curse, of a girl who had been wronged and a vengeance that knew no bounds. In the end, Lily's wrath consumed everything. The crocodile, her monstrous avatar, ruled the swamp, ensuring that no one would forget the sins that had been committed. The legend of the Mitchells, Lily, and the cursed town lived on, a terrifying tale that travelers shared in hushed tones around campfires. And deep within the swamp, beneath the gnarled trees and murky waters, Lily's laughter continued to echo, a chilling reminder that some spirits could never be laid to rest.